For today's video, I'm going to take you through the creation of this Halloween scene. The original design was one that I came up with for a paint and sip class that I did about a year ago. And it was a lot of fun to do that painting in the class, so I decided to remake it for a YouTube video. And the image that you see on the screen is the original painting that I did for the class. And that pattern can be downloaded from my craftandfabriclinks.com website. And I'm showing the link right there, so stop the video and write down that link. If you go there, you can download the pattern and then you can trace it onto a canvas. It can be enlarged or shrunk to fit your canvas, or you can just follow me along today and freehand draw in your own design. A difference between this video and prior videos that I have done is that besides taking you through the creation of the original painting, I'm going to show you how to take your original painting and turn it into beautiful, usable art. I started a new business recently called MugMe Designs, and you can find that at mugme.com. So write down that link as well. A group of artists here in the North Phoenix area and I decided that we wanted to be able to offer our art on usable items. Usable items are always nice to offer customers at craft fairs. So we checked into Sublimation Printing, and we weren't entirely happy with the quality that we were getting with some of the test prints. So I went ahead and purchased the sublimation equipment. I already had a beautiful scanner and I had all the software that was necessary. And this is an example of one of the mugs that I made myself. Like a lot of artists, I have been guilty of taking a sip of paint water. So keep watching and you will see the creation of the painting, and then after that I will show you how to scan it and use software to tweak it as necessary to get that perfect print, and then I'll show you how a mug is actually pressed. Okay, now to start, I have all of my paints ready here on a plate. I just use disposable plates. It's really easy. And for the canvas, it's always a good idea to add an extra coat of gesso if you don't have a really good artist quality canvas. And this is a level 2 canvas that I got at Michael's. It probably would be a good idea to have an extra layer or two of gesso. I'm not going to do that because I'll be laying down quite a bit of paint. So I think it'll be fine, but I do recommend that. Then I have my original image handy here that I can refer to. And I want this to be colorful. And so I have a lot of colors that I'm going to be playing around with. Now you don't have to use the exact same colors that I used. I do have them listed here for you. But I recommend that you try various colors of your own. And for the background here of the sky, I have various shades of blue. Prussian blue is one of my favorites as far as being a really bright color. I have cerulean blue. I have Payne's gray, which I use a lot of instead of black because it's just a little bit softer. I have various shades of golds and oranges, and I have Grumbacher red thrown in there. The brand that I tend to use is Grumbacher, which I get at Michael's or any art supply store, and I'm happy with that one. I also use Liquitex or Golden. The green gold that I really love is by Golden. I haven't found anything quite like this in another brand. So other than that, experiment with different brands. The brands do make a difference because the higher the brand quality, the better the UV protection and the longer lasting your painting will be. So keep in mind, if it's a painting that you're planning on selling, you'll want to stick to the higher end artist brands. If it's something that you're planning on doing for yourself or scanning to put on print or something like that, you don't necessarily need archival paint. But to start with, then I will take my original and I will sketch in some lines to represent the different areas of the painting. So the first thing that I kind of like to do is put in a ground line, and then I'll have this background ground line, and I kind of figure about where it is. It's not quite up to half. of what this is. And then I have my different layers of mountains and things, and I want to have my moon up here. Now it doesn't have to be exactly like this, but I'm going to follow that idea. So I have also, I just use some napkins to dab off the excess moisture. So dip my brush in the water, dab off a little excess, and just start kind of putting in my basic lines. Okay, now I'm just using a rounded tip brush, which is a filbert. And this is one of my favorite brushes to start laying in the sky. And at this point, I have many shades of blue to choose from. I'm going to start with a little cerulean. And I always have titanium white with me when I'm working on things. This is going to have a lot of layers. That's why I didn't really worry about laying down gesso first. So I will start by just getting the basic coat down. At this point, it's just cerulean blue. But it takes a lot of layers of paint to start building up any sort of depth. And the more layers you put down, the better it looks. And you'll see that if you've watched very many of my videos. Now, if you're wondering about transfer of design, when you go to that page that I mentioned on my Craft and Fabric Links website, you can print it out and enlarge it or shrink it to whatever size fits your canvas. And then all you do is lay down a piece of carbon paper and then trace. Use a stylus or the end of a pen or whatever you have to trace the basic drawing onto your canvas. Now it's okay that I'm covering that up because that was just to see if it would fit. And that will all be changed later. That'll be put back in. So you can change the flavor of this by having a very dark, spooky looking sky or stormy looking, or it can be kind of cheerful. I'm going to be throwing in some purples and various things like that too up here. And I'm letting that show through a bit there because that's going to be where my post is later. So when you go to mugme.com, you can either upload your images to us, and there's a contact button there in our menu, and you can contact us that way, and we'll let you know how to do that. You can send us your image, and I will tweak it a bit myself. If it doesn't require much, I just do that free of charge, and then I will put it on a mug for you. Once you purchase the mug, you just send us the image. Or you can purchase one of the mugs that we already have on there. And if you're an artist and you would like to have more done, we do have wholesale pricing for artists. You can find out about that as well by contacting us through the site. So now I'm to a point where I have my basics down there. I need to put in the basic ground. I'm not going to put the post in yet because I have so much more work to do on the hills and things. And this is different than my original, and like I said, that's okay. The original is just the basics for you. Now, this warm gray is one of my favorite colors. I really like that, and I like burnt sienna. It's nice for ground. Okay, so now I just have to be patient and let that dry. So I will put this in a large Ziploc bag. That works really, really well for me. But right now, looking at it, I can see that obviously my pumpkins are not standing out. They need to be dramatically different than the background. And So I will have them be a deeper tone than the background. I'll keep the background kind of light, at least around the pumpkins. I like the overall color scheme though, and I do like the reds. These are all shades of fall to me. So I'm overall happy with the composition. At this point, if you are not happy with anything, you can always let it dry and paint over anything with white. Titanium white is really the best, and I always think of that as my eraser. Okay, so now I'm going to start laying in the sky, putting down a bit more color. To help blend, you can use your fingers. There's not a lot of toxicity to these paints, but you should wear gloves. I mentioned that in all of my YouTube videos. If you're touching the paint with fingers, then use gloves. I don't do that myself, but that's what I tell people. Okay, now I'm ready to move on to my ground here, but first I wanted to explain what I've done. I rounded this up by using this because it's important that the moon be round. I think the eye picks it up if it's not quite right. Okay, and this little alizarin crimson here, this is the alizarin crimson. I don't want pink, I just want a touch of red on the side there where the moon glow is. Okay, so I will let that dry now before I do another layer on there. I will start working on this section down here. Now on my original, the pumpkins came up to the edge of that background. And that's not super important, but I just don't want my pumpkins to look too small. So I may bring that up a little bit. Either that or I have to bring the background, this line, down a little bit, which I could also do. And I kind of have to decide how I want to start tying this together back here. Remembering that this is going to be kind of golden orange, so I think that I want to have a little darker back here so that this shows. This is a little Deerfoot brush, and it's really nice because you can come in and grab a couple of different colors like this, maybe even a touch of yellow, and you just start going like this, and it gives kind of naturally gives you a nice ground. Just kind of happens for you. But the reason you have dark in there first is you need shadow. You need what they call negative space. So you put in a certain amount of darks, and it can become less distinctive as you move towards the back. And I just keep laying down layers until it looks right to me. Okay, so now what I've done is I put in another layer of paint across the bottom here and brought in some more color and touched up some of this area. It's going to need a lot more layers, but I'm switching to my size 8 filbert. Filbert meaning that it's a rounded end. And I'm going to put in some pumpkin detail now. Okay, now I'm going to let this thoroughly dry because I can't really mess with it while it's a little bit damp still. Okay, the last thing that I did last night was I added a little bit of touch of the brighter golden yellow in the grasses, and that makes this stand out a little bit, and then I just let it dry. So one thing that I like to do is look at a painting in lower light. Another thing you can do is just take a black and white image of it, and that shows any place where you have a problem with lack of contrast. Now these mountains don't have to have a lot of detail because it's nighttime, and they just sort of, they're just a background part of the image, but they are a big chunk of the painting. So you do want to notice some interesting things. And to me, there's the depth of color is too much the same in here. I need some little bit lighter glowing areas where maybe the moonlight is shining. I don't want too much, but I just don't want it all to be too much the same. This brush, by the way, is not a Deerfoot. It's called a Scrumbler, and you can also use that to get background, and you just sort of can push the paint around and get softer tones. It can be nice when you're doing a sky and you want to soften up clouds. Now I will take my little Deerfoot and add just a bit of grasses across here. Now this is fairly thick, so when you're working with a Deerfoot, you really have to be careful to get the water out of it. I kind of squeeze it a little bit. Otherwise you'll end up dripping water all over your canvas. So I want to have some grasses down here. Now once I get my fence post in there, I will be adding some more grasses, so I don't need a whole lot. And at the very base of grasses, I tend to add a darker color, like for example a little bit of Payne's Gray, because down at the very base there will be shadow down along the ground line, and I did that over here as well, but I just wanted to show you a little bit of grass being added. Now I have a little Prussian blue again with some white. because it's so pretty. I just kind of want to bring some of that out again. So I have a little kind of a purplish in my ground down here, so I have a little of that up in there. I like to sort of balance things around. I could even bring in a little bit more. So I could actually start now bringing in a little bit of clouds across the sky, and I think I'm going to use Payne's Gray and just kind of have a little bit of something like this. So now I need to work on the pumpkins a little bit more. And they just need a bit of shading. This one I'm going to have, the stem will be coming up from down in here. So any kind of shading will be out this way. I dip one corner of my brush in a darker color and the other corner in a little bit lighter color. And then that kind of shades for me as I come around. Okay, now I'm going to use a little bit of Hooker Green, which goes a long way. So Hooker Green is really kind of too much by itself. So I'm going to take a small brush, little tiny flat brush here, and I will use the Hooker Green, but I will mix it with Payne's Gray. There's a heavy base of a mountain here, so I kind of like to balance that a bit too. I try to watch what's going on in different areas of the painting. Now I'm going to put my cactus in. And to do that, I'm going to put down a coat of pure white first. I personally don't like sharp lines. I like things to blend nicely. It's just my taste. I want one color to just kind of blend nicely into the next. They certainly don't have to. If you go up to a lot of artists' work, you get up close, you'll see all of the heavy brush strokes and things, and palette knife especially does that. But I like this better. Yeah, that paint makes a big difference. So now I need to let it sit again and thoroughly dry. Later on I'll add a little shadow under here, and I will then put in my fence post and my cactus and little wires that come up here and just sort of drift down into the grasses where the fence is broken back there. Okay, I'm going to zoom in now so you can see in better detail what the painting looks like. I softened the clouds just a bit, and I really like the way the moon glow just glows down over the top of the hills there. And it's almost like it's lighting up the top of the pumpkins. So it is now ready for me to go back and add the cactus and the post as soon as it's dry. So I'll let it dry thoroughly and then I'll come back and do that. Okay, now I'm ready to finish up, and that is just to put in the cactus and the post and a couple of little probably, I guess it's from a fence, so some kind of wire in there. So to do that, I will use what I had mentioned, which is the Hooker's Green with a little bit of Payne's Gray or black. I'm just taking a little bit of green, and this all by itself, see, is just, it's too green. So you can either add a little bit of Payne's Gray or even a little bit of the warm gray to it. And as you come up and down the strokes like this, it automatically, when you have more than one color on your brush, it will lay in what kind of looks like little cactus grooves. Towards the bottom down here, I'll have it a little darker. But you don't need a lot of detail on here anyway. It's nighttime, but cactus will have shading on it and things like that, so you can always add a little bit of something here. So one of my favorite colors to use when I'm doing anything with wood is the warm gray. And I can toss in a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of Payne's Gray, and it's all on the same brush, but it just comes out somehow correctly, kind of with shading in there for me. If I just kind of run the brush up and down there with those colors on it, it comes out sort of streaked automatically. And looks kind of like old wood, which I am going for that kind of a look here. There's the little wire holders on there. And the final thing is just putting in a little bit of shadow underneath my pumpkin, so they're not just sort of floating there. And then of course a little bit of grass is over here still. Okay, now I'm considering this finished, but like with all of my paintings, I will let it sit for a day or so, and I will let it thoroughly dry, and then I'll decide if I need any last minute adjustments. It should dry just pretty close to how it looks right now, but I like to look at it in a different light and things like that and decide if I want to make any changes. When I'm finished with it, I will get a really good scan of it, and then I will print it using my sublimation printer, and I will create a mug out of it. So keep watching and you'll see how that process is done. Okay, now I'm to the point where I'm ready to scan my painting, and I have this really nice Epson printer. It made the best cards. When I was in any kind of art fair, artists would come up to me and ask me who did my cards, and I actually did them myself with my Epson printer. Unfortunately, it died just under 1 year. So it was just within the warranty period, and the company did send me a new one, and it died about a month later, just outside of the warranty period. So they do offer for a fee repair and things, but I already knew the track record of it, so I was not going to put more money into it. The Epson that I had before this was a fabulous machine. I had it for many years, and they say that sometimes the printer head will dry out. I used this printer almost every day. We did all the cleaning and all the things you're supposed to do. So I don't really know what the problem was, but the reason I have kept it is because it is a beautiful scanner. I do wish that printing companies would come up with a printer scanner that is made with artists in mind. And the scanning surface could be larger. It could have a hinge here so that you could close it down over something that has a thickness to it. I used to have a scanner like that when I sold fabric on the internet through my craftandfabriclinks.com, because that had a lot of bulk to it. And the way the scanner lid came down, it allowed for that bulk. This one does not, but it does a really nice scanning job anyway. I can put a cloth over the top of it, but I don't really have to. So I will now go set up my computer to do the scan. So at this point, I know it's going to scan the entire image. This is a preview. So I'll go ahead and tell it to scan. I scan at 300 dpi, which is what I print at. If I wanted to enlarge a painting to print to a larger size, then I would set it at 600 dpi or 1200 dpi. This scanner, I believe, goes up even higher than 2400, so I can create a very large print from my originals. For the mug, I don't need it as large, but I still scan it at a high resolution. Okay, now at this point, I have my scan, and I have selected this area, which is the main part of the image. And I can copy that and then paste it to its own image. And now I have my image to work with. And I can see I need to crop a little bit more off of the edges here where it starts to wrap around. I crop that part off, and then I can go over it very carefully. I can blow it up really large and make sure there wasn't a little piece of lint on the image or anything like that. Now when people send me their own JPEGs for me to print on a mug, I really carefully look at them to make sure that there are no blemishes in the image, or that the contrast doesn't need to be fixed a little bit. I know what makes a good print. But unlike a lot of larger print places, I don't just print what is sent to me. I'm very careful to make sure that it is a perfect print quality image. Another thing that I should mention is this monitor is very true to color. Now, you don't always get precisely the same color for all tones between getting your initial camera image or scan, putting it through software, putting it through a sublimation ink printer and printing it. There might be slight changes, but I have found that this has been very, very true to color. I've been really happy with all of the results. Okay, now my print is ready, and I will just take it over to my paper trimmer and get it ready for the mug. I should also mention that the print is backward, and that is because it goes in reverse onto the surface of whatever you're printing. And I use heat-resistant tape to hold the print onto the mug. And this is a really, really nice mug press, but it wasn't just a take out of the box, turn it on and go type thing. It took quite a bit of tinkering with it and working with the technicians at the company I bought it from. It doesn't really work quite right with the manufacturer's settings. So with a little bit of playing around with it and practice, we got it just perfect. It was worth the tinkering to me rather than just use it as is, because I wanted a perfect print. I'm working with artists, and they will know the difference if it's not quite right, and I'm printing my own work. And my friends are printing their work on here, so we want to make sure it is absolutely perfect. So now I have the image wrapped around the mug, and it's held in place by the heat-resistant tape, and I can go ahead and put it in the mug press. This mug press gets to be very, very hot. Another thing that I should mention while it's cooking is that I do put the artist's name on the mug. So when you order a mug, make sure that your spelling is correct for your name or any name that you want on the mug. If you are uploading artwork of a child, I can put the child's name on the mug. You can put in any kind of information like that under comments. But this way, when you sell a mug at an art fair, you get credit for the artwork that is on the mug. Okay, now it's ready to come out. And that is a beautiful print of my mug. So I will let it sit here and cool for a little bit, and then I will get a better image of it and let you see a close-up of it. So remember, if you would like to see some beautiful fine art printed onto mugs in very, very high quality, or if you would like to see your own beautiful artwork or photography printed on a mug in extremely high quality, visit mugme.com. Thank you for watching my video.